Today is October 9th, 2012, and I am Teresa Larson. I am in the home of John William Waters, better known as Bill. Bill, thanks for joining me for
Thank you.
this oral history project. And do I have your permission to talk to you today?
You certainly do.
Great. Well, I always start with having people tell me when and where they were born.
Well, I was born in Carroll, Iowa, January 9th, 1928.
Did you go to public school there?
I went to a Catholic grade school and St. Lawrence, and then I went to the public high school, which was Carroll High School.
What was your dad's business in Carroll, Iowa?
My dad was in was an old-time department store. They had groceries in the back of the store, and then the front of the store they had women's clothing and yard goods and things like that. And and then they would buy things from farmers like eggs, and in the basement of the building someone would bring the eggs in, and so we'd take them to the basement and kennel them, they call that. They'd look at them, make sure that they were okay, and so then we would buy the eggs from the farmers and then resell them.
Did your father employ you to help out in the store?
Well, I came from a family of, there was 6 of us all together, and I had 2 older brothers, and they spent a lot of time working at the store. I was interested in animals, and I liked animals, and so I kind of wanted to work at the sale barn, where they sold livestock every week, and so I kept, in 9th grade, I kept going down there and asking them if they'd need work, and if they didn't, well, then I'd come back next week, and so finally they hired me, and so I enjoyed doing that,
So you might have ended up as a farmer or veterinarian if you'd followed the animal
Yes,
thing,
there's a possibility.
but you didn't.
No, I didn't, no. And so anyway, I graduated from Carroll High School in 1946. And then the war was on all the time I was in high school, and it ended in 45, but we were still going. And so I joined the Army, and was in the Army for a year and a half, and came out, and of course I had the GI Bill, which paid for college education, so I ended up going to Creighton in Omaha, and no, just excuse me, I'm sorry, I started out going to Regis College in Denver, and so I liked Colorado, and I liked Regis. But then I came home. I was a football player in high school, and I came home, and it was fall, and they were having homecoming. They asked me to speak. So anyway, so I gave them my 2 cents worth, and so one of the cheerleaders was my wife, and so anyway, I asked somebody who that good-looking blonde was, and they told me, and so later we got together and been together ever since. But
So going back to Denver wasn't really an option, then you wanted to
Yeah,
stay
yeah.
in the Midwest.
Yeah, so then I had to be closer to Iowa, and so I transferred to Creighton.
I'm just wondering, your business degree, do you have retail in your blood? I mean, your dad was in
Yeah,
retail.
yeah, he was in retail, and I had, quite a bit of exposure to it. I worked at the store, but not an awful lot.
Mhm.
And so, so, and then I took business administration from in college, and so when I got out, well, then I was looking for a job, and my wife Betty at that time was going to school in Simpson and in Indianola. So anyway, I went to look for a job at various places, and Firestone offered me a job, and they offered me a job in Omaha. And so then I asked them if there was other places that I could apply, and they said, you could apply in Des Moines. So I thought, well, that's ideal. That's not far from Simpson. So I applied in Des Moines, and they gave me a job.
And what did you do for Des Moines Firestone? You were not in the factory.
No,
No.
no. I was in a retail store. It was at 10th and Walnuts where it was. And they had me as a clerk working in the bookkeeping department at this store. So I was there for, I don't know, a year or two or something, and then they moved me to Cedar Rapids. So I went to Cedar Rapids and worked in the store in Cedar Rapids as an office manager there. So then that's when Betty and I got married. We eloped and got married in Cedar Rapids, and so then they moved me to as a territory salesman, which covered several counties, and they moved me to Davenport.
So now you're leaving, like working in an office, and now you have to go out and travel.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I was working as an outside salesman, calling on Firestone dealers in several counties, and did that for a number of years. And also, we bought our first home in Davenport, and I think we paid $11,000 for it, and we were scared to death that we committed ourselves to something that we couldn't handle. But anyway, it all ended up working well. And then the company moved me from a salesman on the road to managing a store for Firestone in Burlington, Iowa. So we moved to Burlington, and so we were married at the time, and so we had, let's see, I think a couple of our children were born there. And so then we heard that the Firestone store was for sale in Ames. And so we decided to try to buy it, and with Betty's family's father's help, we were able to buy the store.
I bet that was almost as scary as
Oh,
buying
man.
the $11,000 house.
That was really scary, you just think that man, this is stupid.
Now,
But
is this maybe 1960, 1961?
This was probably, we ended up moving to Ames in 61.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were debating was probably 60.
Can you
So-
tell me what the purchase price was for the store, or what the arrangements were for that?
Well, as I remember, it was less than 50,000. I think it was around 40,000, something like that.
And
So-
what was for sale? Was it, I think the store was at 120 Lincoln Way, is that right?
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
120 ago. And it was just a business. J.D. Armstrong owned the building. So we ended up renting the building from J.D. Armstrong, and then later, quite a few years later, we ended up buying the building.
Mhm.
So
So you got to Ames, you've got a family, you'd never lived in Ames before. Kind of, what did you think of this town when you first moved in?
well, we loved Ames. Ames was, we were well aware of it. I was born and raised in Carroll. That's not far away, and we were well aware of Ames, and we had friends here that
Mhm.
we'd met over the years, and so it was really nice, and so it's great. We feel extremely fortunate that we were able to come to Ames, you know.
So, what did you have for competition at the time? You're Firestone.
Yeah, we were Firestone. The main competition was Goodyear, and so I can't remember. Oh, and there was a larger dealer in Nevada,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course Sears and Ward's and
Sure.
all those people.
I want to follow up that idea in just a second, but I am probably uninformed about prices. What would a ordinary or normal set of tires have cost when you first started, when you came to Ames?
Oh, I can't remember exactly, but I'd say around $25 a tire, something like that. And they were, at that time, they all had tubes in them. So you had tubes in the tires, and so you'd sell them a tire and then in a tube. You need a tube to hold the air in it. So then a few years later, and I'm not sure how many, they started coming out with tubeless tires, and so that kind of changed the world. And then the construction of the tires was changing too, and they started making radial tires, which was a different way. They made the cords in the tires, and they would wear considerably longer, twice as long.
Well, I'm thinking you ran a business where, this is a product that people need. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily a product that they want. So
Yeah.
you would see a big cross section of Ames, wouldn't you?
Oh yes, we were very fortunate, and I was very fortunate. People took a liking to me, and I was fortunate they did. They helped me. I needed all the help I could get, and so.
So what were some companies or did you have big clients that would come in for your tires here in Ames?
Well, at that time, the man that owned the building was Armstrong Construction, and he used earth moving tires, huge tires, and then the farmers, were using pretty good sized tires. So it was. We didn't, we sold some of those, but our main business was with retail customers, with the cars.
Did you see City of Ames officials police passing?
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. You'd bid on the tires for the city or whatever, and we were fortunate enough to get the bid a few times, and so we got very well acquainted with the police department particularly, and then we put in an alarm system, and it seemed like we could get better acquainted with police then because the darn thing was going off. You know, sometimes at night, like sometimes at winter, etc. And but anyway, so we got very well acquainted with the police department.
Did you ever have any personal, shall I say, conversations with a police officer? You personally?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes, a lot of them. It used to be that there was a train that ran from Ames down to Des Moines and went down by the Highway Commission. And the train was slower than molasses. So one day I was down there and this train wasn't in sight. And the thing was dinging, and so I was in a hurry, so I went through, and geez, and then there comes a police car, and then the policeman says, "I might have known it was you." And so anyway, but that's all changed now. And so
I'd forgotten about that train going south there. That's
Yeah.
right. We just had trains going everywhere. We were kind of a quadrant. You know, they come
Yeah.
in from the north, go down to the south, and east and
we
west.
had the railroad tracks. You know, the time the railroad track switching yards was just south of Main Street, and they moved them out later moved them out in the country, so that helped. So, but anyway.
So you had contracts. I wanted to pick up the thread of, you had other people selling tires in town, but you were an entrepreneur and you went out, and how did you find your niche? How did you get your customers? How did you?
Well, back in those days, that we would buy tires from Firestone, and we would wholesale them to gas stations. So we would go to all the little towns around and sell them tires. And so over the years, that changed, and so we got so that we weren't going on the road selling like we were before, and so we started concentrating more on auto mechanics and auto repair, and that turned out to be a good thing for us.
Mm-hmm. Before we leave your early years of starting a business in Ames, can you just talk about who your neighbors were on Lincoln Way and what it was like to do business on Lincoln Way?
Oh yes, well, to the excuse me, I'm thinking east of us was Kelso had a television store, and some people, I can't remember their names, operated that gas station on the corner, which is now the flower shop. And on the other side was a car dealership. I think they sold Nash or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Allens were involved. I think Bob Allen was involved in the business of the car dealership there.
Yeah.
And so I'm having trouble remembering.
Well, that's a long time back. But you probably had some friends in that area, or you had some business buddies? Did you have business friends that you'd hang out with?
Well, I had plenty of business friends I hung out with, but not too many right there.
In that area. Mm-hmm.
You know, like, for example, Shoneman Lumber was run by Bill Allen, and he was a very good friend. And Ammerhoff's, you know, and Peterson's, you know, we knew them a lot, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Car Hardware and Art and Kettleson, and so, you know, you're going back 50 years, and I'm having a little trouble.
Well, to go back to the store for just a second, you had a business degree, and you kind of said you had some retail experience in your blood. How did you get a good staff? How did you choose a good staff for your store?
Well, I spent about 10 years with Firestone, and they taught me a lot, you know. In other words, that's where I really got my PhD. And so actually when I came and started running the store for myself, I found out it was just the same as what I've been doing. And so I found it relatively easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel blessed that way.
And you had good staff from Ames. You.
Yeah, then we hired some people, and they were good. We always had good employees.
Mm-hmm. Anybody who's in retail always experiences customer stories. The customers that might make you want to pull your hair out, the customers that you treasure, the customers that do funny things. Can you think of some customer stories that over the years?
Well, first of all, there's many, and I can't remember very well from way back then. But one I do remember is the man brought his car in to get it fixed, and he worked downtown someplace, but his home was clear up in North Ames, so. Anyway, he brought his car down and wanted it fixed, so I forget what the problem was. But anyway, so and then he walked to work, and from where the store, and then after his day was done, then he walked all the way home. He lived up in North Ames, and so. Then he forgot.
So the fellow had forgotten about his car, and he walked on home.
Yes, and he lived clear up in North Ames, and so then of course, when he got home, he remembered that he left his car down there. So he walked all the way back down to the store, and then of course he came in the store, and he was just really laughing about it, and so. One of my employees said, I'll tell you something funnier than that. I wonder if it's done. But fortunately, it was. So.
That's a great story.
So anyway, we had a lot of good stories. We had a lot of great friends, and a lot of things good things that happened.
Mm-hmm. So Ames was a good place for you to do business.
No question about it.
Was it hard to sell tires in Ames?
No. Everybody needs them. It's just, you know, and so we were fortunate, and then most everybody needs, you know, oil changes or things done to their car, and so so that helped too. And,
So how do you set yourself apart from the other people who did that?
well, not really. We felt we had a good product, and we we didn't think we were better than anybody else, but we were at least as good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we were locally owned, and so
Well, what I think it's really neat is your business is still going at the same location.
yeah,
Started in roughly 1961. It's 2012.
yeah.
And didn't you have a staff member who took it over?
Yes. Shortly after I came to Amesway, I hired Delbert Trickle to work for me, and so he did, and he turned out to be a good employee, and so after many years, he was anxious to be involved, so I sold him part of the business, and so then quite a few years later, when I was interested in retiring, so and he was interested in the business, so I sold it to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still involved in the business, the building, excuse me, but not in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's turned it over to his son. So it's been a good business, and we were very fortunate. We got a lot to be thankful for.
Well, when I reach this point in the conversation, I want to give you a chance to tell me anything more about living or working in Ames that I haven't asked you or you'd like to say, but I think you kind of just summed it up right there, but if you'd like to add something, you may.
Yeah, well, I don't think I can't think of anything else. I met a lot of good friends and enjoyed the country club and all the fun things about Ames, the Elks Club, and we used to go to the Elks Club a lot when I was in business to eat lunch, and we had good companionship with people. So
Now, which Elks Club are you talking about? The one that's downtown?
yeah, downtown
Across from the library.
library, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
I bet there's some stories from the Elks Club.
oh yeah, yeah. There was back in those days. Just practically all the businessmen would go down to the Elks Club for lunch, and so
Well, that way you could kind of keep tabs on each other and.
Yeah. Tell lies to each other. Yeah, it was fun. We've been very, very fortunate to be in Ames. Ames is a wonderful town.
Well, thank you for letting me come into your home and chat with you, and thank you for your contribution to our oral history to Ames. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
well, thank you. I appreciate what you do.